Can you marry my dad? That was the first thing my son said to me that Sunday morning, his voice bright as sunlight, but the words sharp enough to slice the air. I froze, coffee cup half raised, heart thudding. David stood in the doorway with a crooked smile, one eyebrow arched just like his father's used to. Relax, Mom. I'm only kidding, he said, sliding into the old kitchen chair, as if it were any other day. But in our family, jokes have always been tiny hand grenades, tossed before breakfast, meant to see who would flinch first. The kitchen clock ticked louder than usual. I watched him, looking for clues. My son always did have a way of appending calm before I saw it coming. I have to admit, I admired that in him. Even now, pushing 40 and worth more than the bank across town, he still wanted my reaction, my approval, maybe even my blessing on the mess he brought into this old house. Do you want to hear what's funny? Sitting there, watching David tap out a text with practiced indifference, I realized I still felt like the mother of a boy late for dinner, not the parent of a millionaire who wore his success like skin. But things change. Husbands die. Kitchens age. Sons grow up and start asking very pointed questions like, Mom, do you like the $5,000 Clara gives you every month? If you're still here, welcome to Voice of Jenna, a place where stories aren't just told, they're felt. Here, we dive into real emotions, family drama, quiet heartbreaks, unexpected twists, and the moments that change us. So sit back, relax, and let me tell you what happened next. I nearly dropped my mug, and the sound of it clattering onto the saucer was the only answer he needed. $5,000. Clara's gift. Except it wasn't a gift. It was a myth, spun in crisp currency I'd never touched, wrapped in a promise I'd never heard made out loud. David's phone buzzed. The sunlight shifted, casting crooked shadows over chipped linoleum. You've been getting it, right? He said, now looking at me with that soft brow-furrowed concern, his smile fading. He meant it. He really thought I was living large, being pampered by the same woman who, not 6 months before, corrected my pronunciation of quinoa in front of the whole family. That's the moment I knew something was terribly wrong. Because when your son, your own flesh and blood, doesn't notice the way you've been scraping by, when he believes stories that sound too generous to be true, well, you know you're living someone else's version of your life. I wanted to scream, or cry, or maybe laugh. But instead, I reached for my cardigan, hiding the threadbare sleeve, and said, Of course, dear. Clara has been very generous. My words tasted like metal. He bought it. I watched relief uncurl across his face. David wants things to work always. He believes in clean ledgers and happy endings, and that if you throw enough money at a problem, it will behave. But money doesn't fill bowls or silence empty rooms, or pay the congregation who drops by with casseroles twice a week because they know what actual hunger looks like. Clara breezed in just then, the scent of expensive perfume trailing after her. She greeted David with a peck and set a perfectly wrapped box on the counter, a box I would never open, I'd bet my life. Happy Mother's Day, Margaret, she said, bright as a bell, already moving on. I smiled, code for thank you for nothing. They didn't see the inside of my pantry, where cans are counted and lists rewritten, where hope tastes like powdered milk and charity bread. They only saw the surface, a warm kitchen, a woman content. They didn't see the savings account slipping into the red, or the doctor's appointments I keep rescheduling because the copay is a luxury these days. David talked about stock options and lake properties, all while Clara scrolled her phone, answering emails from people with last names that opened doors. The house felt smaller with them in it, my world shrinking around their voices, their future, their secrets. Sometimes, I catch a glimpse of myself in the reflection of the kitchen window. Strong, yes. The kind of strong that comes from weathering storms and burying husbands and raising a child who thinks the world is his to fix. But even strong women get tired. Even they wonder how much more they can stretch before breaking. David's question lingered long after they left, echoing down these yellowed halls. Is Clara's $5,000 enough for you, Mom? The answer, I realized, isn't just about money. It's about being seen, being trusted, and how those deepest wounds are carved not by strangers, but by the people you love the most. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. I'm not finished yet. Not with fighting for truth, or for dignity, or for the little bit of peace that no one is ever going to buy for me. Something's wrong here, and I intend to find out what. Coffee grew cold. Heartbeat steadied. In that quiet, a realization settled over me. I'd been handed a riddle, and this time, I was going to solve it, no matter how much it cost. You always know when a day's going to take a turn. It's in the small things, a different creak in the hallway, mail that arrives an hour late. The morning after David and Clara's visit, that sense of change coiled in the air. Sunlight spilled across my kitchen table, but all I saw was the envelope Clara pressed into my hand, her neat handwriting spelling, "Happy Mother's Day," like it was a prayer I'd never said out loud. My world on paper is ordinary enough. Oak trees sway outside the faded clapboard house, birds fight for territory in the eaves, and neighbors pass by in battered pickups, waving as if nothing in this town ever changes. I try to make it true, scrubbing the same stains from the counter, checking every window latch twice, brewing instant coffee strong enough to hide the taste of pennies at the bottom of a chipped mug. Routine is my shield against surprises. But ever since David got rich, every day brings a new twist, a different favor, a surprise phone call, some generous gesture from Clara that never quite lands the way she seems to want. She sends flowers that wilt before I've had a chance to admire them, or fruit baskets too expensive for anyone here to touch. I make a show of gratitude for the neighbors, but I leave them for the church, where someone might actually need a pineapple in the middle of February. That morning, Helen from next door stops by, planting herself in my living room with a bag of day-old pastries. "Did Clara give you that new coat?" she asks, her eyes sharp as broken glass, running over my thrift store jacket, a faded floral thing that's seen too many winters. Must be nice having folks send you checks every month. The words sting, meant to. Helen believes what everyone else does. I'm living off my son's fortune. Never mind the hand-me-downs or the way I stretch canned beans and charity bread into a feast. I laugh, the sound brittle. It's all for show. You know me, Helen. I'd rather have your company than all the coats in Dallas. She smiles, but her eyes hold a question she's too polite to ask. By afternoon, my body aches from the stubborn work I do to distract myself, raking leaves already blown back across the yard, rearranging canned goods in sized straight lines, counting out coins for the week's groceries. The hum of David's voice keeps echoing in my head. "You're getting the money, aren't you?" If only he could see how the world tilts without his notice, how a mother's pride is a thin barrier against shame. That night, a small storm rattles the windows. I curl beneath a blanket, listening to the silverware jangle in the drawer, teeth on edge. Somewhere in the rattling darkness, Clara's careful smile flickers at the edge of memory. I remember the time she corrected my pronunciation in church, laughter too quick, eyes too hard. Reminder that some gifts are given to remind you of your place. Sleep comes in uneasy snatches, filled with dreams that leave me restless and hollow at dawn. I find myself standing in the bathroom mirror, picking at the stray threads of my cardigan, wishing I could at least look as strong as I feel I should be. Gray hair, steely eyes, resilience etched in every line. But tired, too. Tired in ways that coffee and pep talks can't fix. On Edgewood Street, lights flicker on in the windows, families gathering for dinner, laughter bubbling through thin walls. I listen to it all, letting it fill the empty corners of my house. Sometimes I envy Helen and her easy certainty, her questions asked straight out, no pretense. Sometimes I envy Clara too, the ease with which she navigates the world, the confidence that comes from always being believed. The next day, when the mail finally comes, I turn each envelope over in my hands. There's no check. There never is. But there is a bill I forgot about and a charity appeal. I pause, realizing this is the first time I'm not surprised. Just angry. My hands tremble, but not from weakness. Something's shifting. Something's waking up. I place the unopened Mother's Day envelope next to the kettle, a silent dare. Maybe next year I tell myself I'll open it. Or maybe I'll ask Clara why she sends gifts wrapped in silk and sealed with secrets. From the kitchen window, I can just see next door. Helen raking leaves she knows will just blow back again. The two of us, working the same patch of earth, chasing circles, trying to keep up appearances while the real winds threaten from somewhere farther off. Somewhere, I know, a storm is gathering. I just hope I'm ready when it breaks. The knock hit the door like a warning, sharp, too loud, careless in a way that let you know someone wanted attention, not an answer. I wiped my hands on my apron, heart quickening like a rabbit in a snare, and opened up to Clara's flawless smile gleaming beneath a pair of sunglasses she didn't need in this overcast Texas light. She breezed in, trailing her citrus perfume and a sense of entitlement that pressed into the corners of my narrow hallway. She didn't bother with small talk, not really. "David said you'd be home," she announced, cool as a cucumber. Her eyes scanned my living room, pausing on the faded carpet and lonely stack of church donation envelopes on the sideboard. "We need to clarify some things, Margaret. I hope you don't mind me being blunt. That's Clara for you. Always arriving unannounced, always carrying the sharp edge of her generosity folded like a switchblade in her manicured hand." My house suddenly seemed dimmer, smaller. I noticed dust motes twirling in the pale light, little dancers performing for the intruder. I invited her to sit, though every bone in my body wanted her gone. The kettle hissed and rattled, echoing the tension rising in my chest as I poured tea that neither of us really wanted. "You know David cares so much about you," Clara cooed, wrinkling her nose at the chipped teacup. "He worries you're not comfortable. He trusts me to look after things, you know? Budgets, transfers, making sure everything is, well, smooth." She smiled with all her teeth. I kept my voice steady, my face unreadable, like my mother taught me. "David tells me I'm well looked after." I watched for the wince. Got it. The quick slip behind her eyes. "Of course. That's what we've been saying. You've been getting the money, right?" The question twisted through me like a splinter. If I told the truth, David's whole pretty picture would collapse. But if I lied again, Clara's hands would keep tightening around the purse strings and, worse, around my son's trust. I stirred my tea, fighting the urge to throw it in her lap. "It comes and it goes," I said, vague as the sky. She crossed her legs and picked invisible lint off her skirt. "These old houses need so much upkeep. Frankly, David should have just moved you to a condo closer to him. Modern. Safe. Less responsibility. I know he'd never want you to worry, or, God forbid, get confused about money." There it was, the first stone lobbed, disguised as concern. My hands clenched beneath the table, knuckles aching. The room suddenly felt colder. I could see my own breath fogging up the kitchen window. Outside, the wind whipped the flag on the neighbor's porch, as if reminding me storms start with a whisper. "I manage well enough," I replied, my voice calm even as my chest burned. "Truth is, what I need most is honesty from the people I love." Clara's eyes narrowed, chin tilting up, but her smile never faded. "Clarity is good for families, Margaret. No room for misunderstanding. We intend only the best for you." And there it was again, the royal we. As if David and Clara moved as a unit, a fortress I would never breach. My phone chimed just then, a message from Helen. "Everything okay?" As if she'd sensed the weather shift. I resisted the urge to answer. No, everything wasn't okay. Everything was unraveling quietly, thread by thread. Only Clara and I were pretending not to see it. Clara stood, smoothing her skirt as she glanced around the house, once more, like a buyer measuring for curtains. "I'll remind David to talk to you about your accounts. We can't have you feeling uncertain about these things. You've done enough for this family. Let's take care of you now." Her heels clicked down the hallway, each step marking a line I'd have to cross later, whether I wanted to or not. When the door closed behind her, the whole house seemed to exhale, sagging under the weight of secrets nobody wanted to say out loud. The money wasn't in my account. Clara's story didn't add up. And for the first time, I didn't just feel unsettled. I felt angry. Angry enough to start asking questions. I stood at my window, watching her drive away, and wondered, how long could she keep up this perfect act? And how long could I keep pretending not to see behind the curtain? The real storm hadn't even begun, but I could feel it on the horizon, a reckoning, and I'd be ready when it arrived. Clara took more from me that day than my peace of mind. I count that afternoon as the moment my world began to fracture, which, as you'll see, isn't the kind of break you notice all at once. The details come slow. A missing check, whispers in the church parking lot, the way Helen hesitated to invite me over for coffee, as if poverty were contagious. After Clara's visit, suspicion gnawed at me like old hunger. My pantry felt emptier. Every bill that landed on the counter weighed heavier: electric, medical, a new leak in the roof. The silence became an adversary, heavy as stone, broken only when Helen appeared with a casserole and eyes bursting with worry. "Margaret, have you noticed Clara's car parked longer these days?" she asked, voice hushed as if the house itself was listening. "She likes to keep an eye on things," I said, but inside, Clara's words echoed. "We can't have you feeling uncertain about these things." Uncertainty. Wasn't that what I woke up to each morning? The rationing, the sidelong glances at the grocery store, the careful explanations when the food pantry called to ask if I needed extra bread. I was alone more than ever, even with people all around. The worst fear wormed in late at night. What if it's true? What if I'm losing my grip, just like Clara said? I tried to untangle the numbers. Receipts, bank statements, stacks of paper I'd kept since before David wore suits or talked of tax brackets. My hands shook as I added, subtracted, circled dates, always coming up short. There was no money from Clara, just empty promises. My isolation wasn't an accident. I heard my phone buzz. A message from David. "Clara says the transfer went through."
"Don't worry, Mom. Worry."
The word throbbed in my chest, thick with anger. I wanted to write back, wanted to scream, but I typed only, "Thank you, dear." Sleep grew stranger, split between dreams of old family dinners and nightmares of eviction notices. Some nights, I walked room to room, cataloging losses, fading framed photos, thinning drapes, old wedding china chipped by time. Helen called. "Margaret, you need to tell David the truth. Don't let Clara muddy things. He trusts you. He'll listen." "I can't hurt him," I whispered, feeling the weight of every secret I'd buried.
"He's all I have."
Helen's reply was sharp. "Then let him help, before you've lost everything." I saw Clara again, this time at David's office, cloaked in business casual armor. Her greeting dripped sweetness for the receptionist, but when she caught my eye, her smile faltered. Tension fizzed in the air. David rushed into the waiting room, cheeks flushed with concern. "Mom, what brings you in?" His words sparkled with warmth, but behind them, Clara's gaze sliced over me, silent but dangerous. "I just wanted to ask about the money," I said, steadying my voice. "I haven't found any deposit. I thought maybe I was missing something." Clara leaned in, voice like velvet over gravel. "We made the transfer last month, Margaret. You definitely got it. Maybe check again." David's hand instinctively found Clara's arm. He looked between us, searching my face, then hers. "I'll double-check, Mom."
"Don't worry."
Don't worry. Don't doubt.
Don't ask.
I saw a web in that moment, spun quietly by Clara, sticky and glinting in the fluorescent office air, a trap woven out of generosity and control. When I returned home, the shadows felt sharper, the house smaller, the kitchen metallic and cold. I sat with my old ledger books, flipping back through years of careful balancing, reminded of times when dignity was all I had left. I resolved not to let Clara win. Not through deception, not through charm. I would drag this truth into the light, no matter what it cost me. I heard the clock tick, felt every second push me closer to a choice: expose the lie or surrender to it. That night, a storm rattled the windows, so hard I thought they'd shatter. I stood in the living room, watching lightning race across the sky. Promise of a reckoning. I clutched Helen's words close, knowing that soon I'd have to risk everything for the truth. So I decided, This is the moment my fight begins. Clara might have power, but she underestimated the strength a woman finds when her back's against the wall. I opened the old desk drawer, pulled out every document, every note, every scrap of evidence. The battle lines had been drawn, and I wouldn't let Clara erase me from my own story.
Not now.
Not ever. Helen's gossip spread through our neighborhood as fast as summer rain. I didn't realize her latest concern about the church donations for repairs would become a subplot to my troubles, but it did. She'd gotten wind of the missing money and the way my pantry looked, and now more than ever, Helen acted like my unpaid detective. She'd corner Clara at Sunday service, flashing her smile sharp as a cleaver. "We so admire the generosity David and Clara have shown Margaret, but it's funny, her pantry's emptier than ever," she said, voice syrupy sweet and loud enough for half the congregation. Clara stiffened, caught off guard. "It's not my place to discuss our arrangements," she replied, voice ice cold. "But David and I do everything possible." Helen's eyes narrowed. "Hope so. You know, the ladies' circle is always asking questions." Clara blinked, hiding nerves behind expensive mascara. I watched her exchange, heart pounding, realizing just how fragile my veneer had become. That subplot, the church support, the gossip swirling around my situation, stacked extra weight on my shoulders. Later, Bennett, David's accountant, called. His voice always carried a dry steadiness, but that day it trembled just a little. "Margaret, there's a discrepancy on those transfers Clara says she made." He hesitated. "I can check if you want, but David shouldn't hear it from me first." Fear warred with hope, and I said, "Please, I need you to tell the truth, Bennett, all of it." He promised he would. From that moment, Bennett's subplot, the search for financial proof, became my lifeline. Meanwhile, Helen pressed with concern wrapped in past regrets. "Why not move in with me? I see how tired you look." I shook my head. "I'm not leaving this house because of Clara." My anger started to become strength, a quiet thing that grew each time someone doubted my story. Another layer unfolded at church. The ladies' circle, led by a stern woman named Martha, started asking about Clara's donation. She'd promised a large sum for new hymnals, but nothing arrived. "Some people talk big," Martha muttered, glancing between me and Helen, "but actions matter more." On yet another front, my son David texted after missing family dinner. "Clara says you haven't thanked us for May's transfer yet. Did you get it?" His loyalty came buried in confusion, and I wrote back, "Thank you, dear," swallowing the truth that burned inside. Every subplot, every conversation, every glance in church or text from David raised the stakes higher. They twisted like roots beneath my main story, each subplot of vein-feeding tension and doubt, each character playing their part in my unraveling support system. I found myself waking early, making notes on scratch paper, questions for Bennett, names of women in the church, dates of missed bills. My paranoia grew, a plot complication tightening with every unanswered question, every failed promise. Helen's kindness began to feel smothering. Bennett's investigation sent slivers of dread through my days. Church rumors burned under Clara's calm exterior. David, caught blindly between loyalty and disbelief, was drifting further away, his texts colder, shorter, distracted by Clara's assurances. That Sunday, as the church bells rang, I stood beside Helen, Martha, and Clara in the pew, all of us singing in different keys. I could feel the storm building, every subplot weaving its way toward a climax I knew I couldn't escape. The rising stakes, the circling rumors, the growing sense that truth was about to break loose, all of it pulsed in my chest, relentless and raw. In that moment, surrounded by allies and adversaries, I remembered the strength that comes from being tested again and again, and I vowed I'd be ready when the time came, no matter how alone I felt. Failure comes with a sound, the dry tear of an envelope, the hollow thunk of a rejection letter, the brutal silence of a phone not ringing back. When Bennett called that morning, his words felt heavier than the autumn air. "Margaret, I've dug as far as I can. There are no records, no transfers. The money Clara promised. It never reached your account. She's covered her tracks well. My world shrank with each syllable. I gripped the phone until my hand cramped. I wanted to scream, but my voice was a whisper. Thank you, Bennett. He asked if I was all right. I said yes, though I could feel my heart dragging me under. That night, Clara showed up uninvited. Every step of her heels on my porch thumped like a gavel. She stood in my kitchen, all cool poise and thinly veiled threat, a glass of wine in her hand, swirling it slow. You do realize, Margaret, that David will always believe me. You're tired and forgetting things. It's not your fault. Age comes for all of us. Her tone was syrup over a knife. My throat burned. I wanted to strike out, say something, anything, that would pierce her armor of confidence. But I felt diminished, a shadow in my own home. I doubted my memory, doubted my instincts, began to doubt even my worthiness as a mother. Later, I wandered room to room, tripping on memories that now wore a sour taste. The old wedding china, the faded sofa, every photograph felt like evidence against me. Here was a woman who had lost her grip, let others write her story. Helen called, urgency pulsing in her voice. Whatever Clara said, don't believe her. You know your truth, Margaret. I chewed on her words, but spat them out for fear they rang hollow. The pressure mounted. Clara spun rumors at church, whispering about my forgetfulness, my inability to manage simple finances. Martha from the ladies' circle offered to help me organize my bills, just in case. Their faces shimmered with pity and suspicion. Tension twisted tighter by the day, and I bristled with hurt. David, caught in Clara's net, grew cold. His text stopped. Silence bloomed between us, an ache where love once lived. I lay sleepless for nights, left with nothing but the din of racing thoughts. What if they're right? What if I am losing my mind? Each unanswered message, every rumor that trickled back from church, wore me thinner. I wrote in my journal at dawn. Clara is clever. She has made my pain invisible. I have lost control of my story, handed it over one silent compromise at a time. How did I get so small? For the first time, real fear took root. Fear that Clara's cunning had already won, that I'd be erased and no one would see me go. By the end of the week, I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. Strong once, now shaken down to her core, clinging to the last shreds of dignity. My circle tightened. Helen, steadfast as always, kept checking in. Bennett quietly kept his word, but Clara's power warped everything, twisting reality to suit her perfectly pressed worldview. And yet, deep inside, anger stirred. Cold at first, then a burning spark. If Clara's lies could bury me, maybe the same lies could unearth her. I heard Helen's voice reminding me, when family betrays you, it cuts deeper than any wound. But you are not alone, Margaret. And you are not finished. I wasn't.
Not yet. Not.
Night settles over the house like a heavy winter coat, thick, scratchy, impossible to shake off. I sit at my kitchen table, tracing the worn rings in a wood, letting the quiet swallow all the things I wish I'd shouted. The lamp's amber glow washes over faded photographs, each one a window to a version of myself I sometimes barely recognize, a young mother, a new widow, a fighter who never expected to go to war with her own family. My fingers drift over the uncashed bank slips, the unanswered notes from David, Bennett's voice echoing in my mind. No records. No transfers. Clara's covered her tracks well. That truth sinks in deeper tonight, cold as tile beneath my feet. But under that chill lies a stubborn ember I remember from other hard seasons, times when I buried love or dreams, but planted seeds for a future I couldn't yet see. Helen calls, as is her habit, voice brave and worried both. Don't let her make you doubt what you know. You've beaten worse, Margaret, we both have. I close my eyes and let her words pour over me, as if hearing my mother after Sunday service, telling me what dignity looked like even when we had nothing but hope for supper. I remember David as a boy, a streak of laughter through the garden hose, dirt on his knees, pride in the smallest triumphs. I remember the promise I whispered the day I buried his father. You will have more, my boy, but you will always have me. At his wedding, I hugged Clara and thought, let us be family. But some warmth is only for show. Tonight, the past and present blur. I recall darker days. A stretch when bills outpaced wages, when I worried that loving too much meant losing too much. Each memory stitches itself to now, my thinning patience, my refusal to run from this fight. Grief, hunger, loneliness, doubt. They shape a woman like years and winter shape an oak. Roots deepened, bark thickening, branches refusing to let go of the sky. The kettle clicks off, steam swirling through the chill. I breathe it in, steadying myself with every slow inhale, wishing I could bottle the calm and hand it to David, to Helen, even to the parts of myself that tremble. The sting of Clara's betrayal sharpens each sense. I hear the house settle, the neighbor's dog bark, the soft swoosh of Helen's porch light. I taste the bitterness of pride and the sweet, sharp hope in Helen's voice. I pull out my old ledger and begin to write, not what I have lost, but what I will gain by not giving up. I list questions for Bennett, plans for tomorrow. My resolve is elastic, stretched but unbroken. For the first time in weeks, my shoulders ease. A plan, a real plan, rooted in facts and truth and the simple, stubborn willingness to see things through, takes shape beneath my shaking pen. Sometimes I wonder why it comes to these reckonings, why life demands we confront the ugliest parts of those we love. But as I lay my head down, I see a path illuminated by every kindness I've been offered, every trial I've survived. Strength isn't born out of comfort. It grows wild, watered by pain, and the quiet certainty that if you keep reaching, something good may finally reach back. Tomorrow I will gather my evidence. I will enlist help. I will become visible again. Not just a figure at the back of the church, or a subject of gossip in the ladies' circle, or a footnote in Clara's careful storytelling. A cold breeze rattles the window and I shiver, with anticipation, not fear. The final confrontation looms, and for the first time in weeks, I welcome its approach. I am not finished. I am only just beginning. Sunrise found me by the window, fists closed around a mug gone cold, breath fogging the pain as I rehearsed what I needed to do. No more waiting. No more hoping that goodwill would win over lies. Clara had underestimated how far a woman pushed to the edge might go for truth. I straightened my shoulders and pressed my palm to the ledger. Every debt, every missing cent, every one of her deceptions marked in trembling ink. I dialed Bennett first. I want to meet, I said, voice clearer than I'd felt in weeks. Today. His relief was audible, as if he'd been holding his breath right alongside me. Margaret, I have the statements. I have the dates. I have your back. Helen knocked before 8, her face lined with worry, but fierce with loyalty. If you're going to stand up to Clara, you're not doing it alone, she said, pressing hot biscuits into my hands. Church ladies have nerves of steel, especially when there's a cause worth fighting for. The kitchen filled with the aroma of baking and determination. Over tea, Bennett spread out the documents. Every gap in the transfers, every half-truth Clara had spun erased by columns of black and white. My hands trembled, not from fear this time, but adrenaline. Helen gripped my shoulder. Lord knows, Margaret, you've put up with too much for too long. Let's fix this. Her eyes sparked, and something inside me steadied. You say the word, we gather the ladies' circle, and if we have to, drag this into the open for everyone to see. Even the house hummed with change, sunlight warming old wallpaper, finches tapping at the feeder, a sense of forward motion in the air. Each step I took gathering records, rehearsing what I'd say, felt less like burden and more like claiming lost ground. Every memory of being dismissed, doubted, or pitted turned into fuel. Bennett's confidence helped. Clara may have a head for details, he said, but she never considered someone would double-check her generosity. David needs to hear this from you, Margaret, your voice, your evidence. That afternoon, my phone rang. Clara's number flashed. I let it buzz 3 times before answering. Margaret, I hope you're not spreading any confusion about our arrangements, she said, voice honeyed but tight. David's under enough pressure as it is. My son deserves the truth, I replied. And so do I. A pause, just long enough for her mask to slip. Whatever you think you're doing, know this. It won't end well for anyone. Shaking, I set the phone down. Helen's eyes met mine, unwavering. That's how you know you're getting close. Rattling her. As dusk crept in, I assembled every document, note, email, stacked them in a folder thick with a lifetime's worth of resilience. My hands stopped shaking. I realized this wasn't just about money. It was about dignity, about refusing to be erased by someone else's story. I stared at my reflection in the window, saw the lines of fear and hope and defiance written clear as day. I'm not backing down. I chose this fight because someone had to, and because I finally believed I was still that woman who didn't break. Tomorrow, I would confront David and Clara. Tomorrow, I would demand to be seen and heard, even if my voice shook, even if it meant losing comfort or peace. I'd rather face the storm with my eyes open than hide behind a lie one more day. The dining room was set for a quiet charity dinner, but every glance and gesture sparkled with electricity. Clara, crisp in her tailored suit, perched at the end of the table while David shifted beside her, torn between loyalty and discomfort. Helen and Bennett sat across from me, silent allies, their faces taut with anticipation as I unfolded a thick stack of documents onto the table's faded runner. Margaret, we should toast, Clara said, voice high and brittle. To family and generosity. She lifted her crystal glass, daring anyone to match her poise. I met her eyes. I'd rather toast to truth, I replied, forcing steadiness into my voice. Clara's smile flickered, but her mask held. Bennett leaned forward. David, you asked if your mother's been receiving her monthly support. I'm here to clarify. Nothing's come through. Not once. Not from your account, and not from Clara's. David's face paled. Clara said, there was a transfer. You said. Clara's knuckles whitened on her glass. Maybe there was a technical error, David. These things happen. I stared at her, really stared for the first time. My heart hammered, heat suffusing my cheeks. The air grew thick, heavy with the scent of roast chicken and the acrid undertone of betrayal. There's no error, I said. I've counted every penny. I've held on to dignity longer than anyone here can imagine. I won't hide behind lies anymore. Helen spoke low, eyes burning. We women keep track, Clara. We always notice what's missing. Silence pulsed. Clara set down her glass, tapping manicured nails in tense rhythm. David, you know how much stress I've been under. Your mother, she's forgetful. There are records somewhere. Her voice faltered, met by Bennett's patient confidence. I found the records, Clara. They lead to you, he said, sliding papers across. The evidence laid bare on the table, transfer dates, emails, every thread unraveling at her feet. David's chair scraped the floor as he stood, trembling hands and storm-cloud eyes. Why would you do this? To her?
To me.
Clara's voice sharpened, desperate. You never understood the pressure. I handled everything. You always asked me to. My breath burned in my throat, my voice finally strong. I wanted respect. You gave me secrecy. You told my son I was cared for. All I wanted was honesty. Helen's hand found mine beneath the table, grounding me. Bennett's nod said it all. I was not alone. Outside, a storm gathered. Thunder rolled through the old window panes, rattling fork and glass. The truth spun its final chord. Clara recoiled, her facade dissolving, every motive laid bare beneath the harsh lamp glow. David stepped away from her and toward me, tears glinting, voice raw. Forgive me, Mom. I never saw it. I should have. Helen's voice broke. We all should have. Nobody sees until the walls shake. Every sense sharpened, the clink of cutlery, the scent of lemon in the air, the cool tremor of Bennett's hand on the table. At last, I felt the shift, the turning point when shame lifted and resolve remained. Tonight, The storm outside was nothing compared to the tempest in this room. I matched Clara's gaze, unflinching. Everything changes. Right here. Right now. A final hush, broken only by thunder, foreshadowed what still needed to come. I knew this was not the end, but it was the beginning of the reckoning. The next step would decide whether we rebuilt family or watched it burn. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready. The silence after the storm was the loudest thing I'd ever heard in that house. Glasses half full, napkins twisted tight, everyone frozen in the aftermath. Clara's eyes darted, searching for sympathy, but none was offered. Truth had cut through, quick and surgical, leaving no room to hide. David stood in the center of the room, hands trembling, voice thin and unsure. "Mom, I am so sorry. I didn't know." His apology cracked something open in me, grief and relief pouring in at once. "You trusted her because you loved her. I did the same once. We both know now." Clara sank into her chair, facade crumbling. Her words unraveled. "I was scared, Margaret. I was lost, drowning in expectations and lies I couldn't take back." She met my eyes for the first time without masks or malice, just a woman finally undone by her own choices. Bennett broke the tension, measured and kind. "I've documented everything. There's nothing here that can't be put right, at least in black and white." His confidence steadied me, even as my knees threatened to give. Helen, fierce as ever, wasn't ready to let go. Community forgives, Clara, but it doesn't forget. Margaret stood alone because she had to. Now she stands with us. The weight of betrayal pressed against my ribs, but in that moment, I saw my own strength shining back at me in Helen's eyes, in the gentle squeeze of Bennett's hand, in David's raw regret. The wound that nearly wrecked me became the means by which I found my voice again. Clara's fate was decided by her own actions. In the weeks that followed, her life changed. Court dates, restitution, her icy courtesy banished from church pews, her whispers unanswered in the grocery aisle. David found the courage to step away from her, but it left him mourning dreams he'd barely dared to name. For me, freedom tasted like autumn rain and the steady tick of a house that finally felt like home. I cleared every room of old resentments and empty promises, filled them instead with laughter, hope, Helen's cinnamon bread, and the low hum of Bennett's advice over coffee. David's apology deepened with every visit, his love no longer tangled in deceit. "Let's make something good out of this, Mom, for all the years ahead." I smiled, amazed at how forgiveness softened the sharpest edges, how truth, once spoken, could actually heal. I spent that winter rebuilding not just my finances but my faith in myself. The woman who once hid behind, "Thank you," and downcast eyes now stood tall, steadied by scars and compassion. I learned there are battles worth fighting, and that victory means more than winning. It means not losing who you are. I didn't just survive Clara's betrayal. I transcended it, roots deeper, branches reaching, ready for any storm to come. And as peace settled in, I whispered a blessing even for Clara. May she find the trust she squandered, the grace she denied, the chance to become new. In this house, truth finally lived. And so did I. After the confrontation, the house finally breathed with a new rhythm. Uneasy, yes, but honest. Clara was gone from the picture, her lies unraveled, but the emotional scars lingered, raw and tender. Helen stopped by more often now, her bright presence a balm against the solitude that had settled like dust. "You showed them all, Margaret," she said one morning, kneading dough with practiced hands. "Sometimes, truth is the sharpest medicine." David came around, quieter at first, eyes full of regret but carrying the weight of change. "I was blind for so long," he admitted one evening as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip behind the oaks. "But I want to make things right if you'll let me." I smiled, sensing the fragile bridge forming between us. "It takes time, David. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a journey." His nod was slow, but certain like spring's first green. Martha from the ladies' circle finally invited me back to church, her tone gentle but sure. We missed you, Margaret. You've been through more than most. Her words closed a chapter of isolation and opened a doorway to community. At night, I reflected on lessons learned, the power of resilience, the cruelty that hides behind kindness, the strength in standing alone until others find the courage to join you. I realized Clara's betrayal had stripped away illusions, but gifted me something rarer: clarity. The basement, once shadowed and silent, became my sanctuary. I started organizing papers, not just bills, but plans, blueprints for a future where my voice mattered beyond these walls. The Grace Hands Foundation was born from quiet determination, a place for others like me, lost in silence, waiting to be heard. One dusk, David handed me a letter, a small gesture that spoke volumes. "For all you've done, and all you'll do." I held it close, feeling the warmth of hope outlast the winter's chill. Our home no longer felt like a battlefield, but a place of healing and reconstruction. There was heartbreak, yes, but also growth, forgiveness, and the dawning belief that even after the darkest storms, life finds a way to bloom again. In this closing chapter of our story, I found peace not because the past was forgotten, but because I chose to write my own ending, with courage, love, and the unyielding conviction to rise. The air was thick with calm that felt fragile, like the pause before dawn, a silence heavy with the weight of everything said, done, and forgiven. I stood by the window, tracing the frost patterns on the glass with chilled fingers, feeling how far I had come, not just through halls of lies, but through the corridors of my own heart. The woman I once was, the one who hid behind thank yous and shadows, had folded away like a season, replaced by someone steady and fierce, softened by pain but not broken. Every fight I'd fought, every scar I carried, had led me here, to truth, to grace, to a redefined family where love was messy but real. David came home that evening, his footsteps quieter now, but filled with a purpose that was new and fragile. We sat side by side on the porch, the sky a swirl of lavender and peach, and he said simply, "Thank you for not giving up on me or us." I smiled, my heart a quiet blaze of hope. We're stronger for it, and there's more to do. The Grace Hands Foundation was no longer just a plan written on scraps of paper. It breathed in every interaction, in every hand held, in every voice raised against silence. Helen led the charge with unwavering devotion, turning whispered prayers into open conversations, creating a community bound by resilience and compassion. Martha's occasional wary glances at me shifted too, a softened acknowledgement that strength comes in unexpected forms, and that redemption is a path worth walking. As I closed my eyes that night, the scent of pine and old paper filled the room, mingling with memories, both sharp and sweet. I thought of the past, the betrayals that stung like winter's bite, and the future, bright and uncertain as the first morning light. Clara's shadow had faded, but the lessons lingered. Trust is precious, resilience is fierce, and family, no matter how fractured, is the heart we fight for. I whispered to the quiet house, "This is not the end, but a beginning." And in that, every wound found its healing. Every silence its song. The story I carry forward is one of truth reclaimed and strength reborn, ready for whatever tomorrow might bring. And someday, perhaps, I'll tell that story to others who, like me, refuse to let their light be dimmed. For now, I rest in the surety that after the darkest night, the dawn always comes. And I will be here to greet it. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to Voice of Jenna so you never miss the next chapter in our world of twists, lessons, and unforgettable moments. Your support means the world to me, and trust me, the stories only get better from here.